Welcome to Really Old Movies. I'm your host, Harrison Scullin, and today I have my very special guest, my brother Hunter. And so before we get started, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hi, everybody. I'm Hunter. Um, yeah, I'm not on social media or anything when it comes to movies, except for Letterboxd. It's a good movie, and I'm just here for a good time.
That's right. And he's been on several of the live streams too, so check those out as well.
Yes.
All right. And before we get started, I have some behind the scenes details about the Joan of Arc film, Passion of Joan of Arc from 1928. So let's start reading those. So the director, Carl Theodor Dreyer, he made this movie. I guess the entire master print of this movie was completely destroyed. And so he had to use scenes that were once he initially rejected to construct and build this film, which is crazy. Another detail, I think you mentioned this too, Hunter, but there was a real puncture wound and real blood in that one scene where like Maria's arm, or not Maria, that's the actress, Joan of Arc's arm is sticking out. Like, that's crazy. It wasn't the actress though; they got some stunt double. So I don't know what kind of stunt double's like. Yeah, poke a hole in me, make some blood come out.
Yeah.
A lot of blood.
On that note, Joan of Arc did later become a Catholic like saint, so you could call her Maria. She would just be a type for Mary.
Good point. Good point. Yeah, but that one just blew me away. I totally thought it was fake. So the fact that was real, oof, crazy, man. The 20s were nuts. They went all in. Let's see. Then the last thing, this film was actually lost for many years up until the 70s, and it was found in an Italian guy's house. He just had a copy of it. And I guess it was for screening in mental hospitals.
Yeah.
Like, I don't I don't know about that, but okay. It's probably not the best film for that. But anyways, yeah, those are some interesting things about this movie that totally blew me away.
hmm
And so anything that you noticed or anything you researched too?
Yeah. So on that note, what's really interesting is the version that they found was Danish, and
Oh,
like they take it to a Danish film place in like the late 70s, early 80s or whatever. And they start working on it with some other person whose name I don't really remember.
mhm.
To like restore the French titles because they were all in Danish.
Oh,
So like on that note, what's interesting is like we're not even seeing the original movie because we're already seeing something built out of all these like second shots, all like alternate shots.
right,
But
right.
also it's not even necessarily the original script. We're not sure. They because like the original was destroyed. This other French version was totally destroyed. It was burned. There's like no original French version. So in the 80s, they had to create this like reworked version from this Danish cut of the film,
That's
and
crazy.
they tried their hardest to do like the best translations they could or whatever. And it's great. It worked out pretty well. Um, but in that sense, like when you watch this movie, you are watching like a you're watching a historical movie first off, like it's pretty spectacular historically, but also like kind of analogous to like the French trying to fight against the British. Like this movie had to go through so much to be successful or like to be
Oh,
where it is now. Like
yeah, yeah.
it literally had to fight and crawl out of fire and burning and other countries just to be
Jeez.
like what we have today. So that's pretty kind of like super cool. Makes me feel like everybody should watch it just because like we almost don't have this movie. Like it
Yeah,
almost just doesn't exist.
yeah. Well, and a lot of silent films are like that too. Even movies like Metropolis, same thing. Multiple prints, multiple things just to make the cohesive story. And even that doesn't have every scene. So it's crazy to me.
Yeah.
All right. So what are your thoughts overall on the plot? What do you give it out of five?
Um well so I felt like this was kind of interesting because like it's based on like actual events and they
Mhm.
opened the movie saying that they had followed the court transcripts that you can read of the trial of Joan of Arc.
Mhm.
So like from the get-go, we already know what the plot's gonna be. I feel like historically everybody knows it's no spoiler what happens to little Joni.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
but on that note, the way they wrote it, the way they tried to express these ideas was like supernatural. Felt like a great, like it's not great, didn't feel great, it's sad. But
It's
like,
very sad. Yeah.
but like the plot, it doesn't feel like I'm sitting it like listening to a boring courtroom. You're very invested the whole time.
Mhm. Yeah. And so would you give that a 5, a 4? What do you think?
Yeah, I give it a 5.
Give it a 5? Nice.
Historical accuracy. I don't actually know how accurate it is, but uh, it was good enough that I feel like you could take this same exact script and just remake it right now.
Hmm.
But like we could hear people too.
Right,
Or like
right.
I would make it exactly the same, just like maybe 70 millimeter.
Yeah, yeah. Maybe not as many close-ups.
Yeah. Well, but that's different though. That's not the plot.
Right, right. Okay. Well, cool. Well, I actually gave the plot a 4 out of 5. I really liked it, but I do think if you don't know that much about the history of Joan of Arc, you'd be kind of lost. To me, there wasn't enough setup, enough things to kind of tell us what was going on. I mean, you do figure it out down the road, but I wish there was more of an introduction. Like we were just thrown into the court room and all of that. It's like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
No backstory, not really knowing who Joan of Arc is and all of that. Um, Now that being said, I do agree with a lot of the points you said. Because I guess there really isn't that much we know about Joan of Arc in general. And
Mhm.
so just in general, people are kind of just making whatever things they can out of it. Cause I think
Mhm.
just that transcript is all we have about the whole thing.
Mhm.
And so it kind of makes sense, but I don't know. That's why I give it a 4 out of 5.
Sure.
Uh
I feel like it holds up though. I feel like
hmm,
because Metropolis honestly was kind of confusing for me. But like because this is very like straightforward,
hmm,
like we took this event and we're trying to portray this event. Like I feel like a modern audience now can much more easily accept the plot of The Passion of Joan of Arc versus some other silent films that I've seen recently
hmm.
that are just kind of like, what is going on? So, or at least it does become kind of artistic at the end. And
Yeah, yeah,
it's kind of shows some interesting, but that was more with just like the language of how they were filming it versus like the plot itself.
right.
Like, in that sense, it's more like a modern audience, even though it's almost 100 years old, could be okay watching this film.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. Speaking of that, what are your thoughts on the acting?
Good.
Yeah, it's good.
Another thing about like just silent films in general is this whole overacting idea where it's like I feel like this is maybe because it was like the cut, well, one, you can't hear him, but also because like as film became a thing, like our other forms of visual storytelling like this were like plays, and in
Mhm.
plays you have to be super expressive and act to the back of the room or whatever they say. So
Right,
like
right.
they still do that at the start of film. Like all these movies I've been watching from like the 1920s and 30s have this like absurd overacting where you're like, like, well, actually, it fits. Like you can kind of put it in that historical lens instead of
Uh-huh.
looking at it by like my own biases of today. I can look at it from like, oh, well, as an audience back then, perhaps this would have been like not super cheesy, but it's kind of cheesy right now. But Passion of Joan of Arc, I feel like doesn't do that. Something I had read too is like there's kind of a lack of makeup, which is
Yeah,
unique
yeah.
for a film like this. So it kind of, I feel like in that sense, because the script was transcripts from a court, uh, like, and they weren't necessary, like they were very dramatic in their acting, but I didn't feel like I was watching like a theatrical drama. So in
Uh-huh.
that sense, I thought the acting was spectacular. I loved it. So I give it a 5.
Nice. No, I'm in the same boat. I also gave it a 5. I really liked Maria Falconetti as Joan. She was incredible in that role. Very expressive, like you said, and um, she really felt passionate, no pun intended, but she really did. Like, it was
Right.
amazing. And most people talk about her performance, but I would add too, Eugene Sylvain, he's like the main priest guy. He has
Yeah.
like all the moles and stuff on it.
Yeah.
That guy was intense. He was
I agree.
amazing. Yeah.
Mhm.
And you could just tell he's like evil, just
Right.
looking at her like, so are you ready to be condemned to hell? Like, it's crazy.
Yeah. Right. It has this whole dualistic thing. Like she obviously like her distress and her ability to portray someone just like eternally torn between these ideas that she's like fighting with. Like she did an incredible job, spectacular. Like she looks like someone who literally believes if she's dishonest or doesn't do what she thinks is right, she'll go to hell and she'll
Yeah.
receive eternal. Like you see this conflict in her, and it's almost like I feel bad for the actress because she literally the movie's like an hour and a half, like 2 hours maybe, hour and a half. I don't
It's
remember.
like an hour and a half. It's pretty
Hour and a
short.
half. And
Mhm.
she's crying the entire movie.
She
She's been crying
is.
the whole movie, but
Yeah.
like it doesn't get old. You're not like, oh, and like another shot of her like staring at the ground, looking over here, and a tear rolls down. Like it just fit. Like it's so the distress. You're just like in it. You're like, oh, so like
Right.
you're okay. I feel like I was okay seeing her not stop crying, but also the reason I bring all that up is to then talk about him. Like he has almost a harder role because
Mhm.
like you can see this dualistic persona of him, like what he says and what he's, which is funny because it's a silent film, but what he
Right.
says and what like about like, oh, like you can receive this redemption essentially, like you can just say it's a lie, whatever, but he wants her to not do that. He wants to see her condemned. Like he
Right.
has
Right.
interest in seeing her suffer, which is like later there's a scene of them like in her room
Hmm.
after the whole court, the first opening court scene or whatever, and he comes and sits by her, and he like she goes to reach out to touch him, and he moves back, and like it just solidifies this whole idea that like he doesn't care about her. Any
Right.
any sense of charity from him to her is false. But I love that you can tell that in his performance. Like he feels like this two-faced individual. So yes, I agree, Harrison.
Yeah. He was amazing. And also, I don't remember the actor's name, but the other priest that was kind of on her side a little bit, I really liked him too.
Yeah, yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
That's
I think just all around, I think they're all great. I
Mhm.
don't have any issues at all with the performances, honestly.
Mhm. Even that one guard.
Yeah.
The guard who like looks like he should be in movies right now. Like I was like, I recognize him.
There's no way you do. He's been dead for 80 years.
Yeah,
That's
but
funny. All right. So we'll move on to directing. What are your thoughts on directing?
I thought it was good. I mean, it's hard to know because these are all like shots that he rejected
Right.
initially.
Right.
So like we don't really know, like perhaps I don't know, like we don't really know what changes he maybe would have made to what we have today.
Yeah.
Um, but from what we have, I felt like the direction was great. I don't know. I don't
Yeah.
really know about directing. I'll give it a 4.
Nice. Well, I gave it a 5. I really like the choices he made for the look and the feel of the movie because
Mhm.
there are a lot of movies, especially in this era, where he could have easily just been like a stage play, basically, where
Yeah,
it's like a normal setup, maybe a scene and all that, people walking around. But he chose to do like extreme close-ups and crazy camera techniques and all these very unique and distinct things that no one was really doing at that time.
right.
It was
Yeah, there's a
incredible.
ton of so I guess I don't really know where the director's influence and the cinematography like run into each other, but there's a lot
Mhm.
of these like long draws, like the camera's moving along crowds of people.
Uh-huh.
But like, I feel like the majority of the shots in like Metropolis, which came out the year before, are very static.
Yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah, yeah.
all these moving, panning, just like really extreme close-up shots that are really interesting.
Yeah, it feels very modern too, like way ahead of its time.
Hmm.
Like even in the 40s and 50s, it would have been way ahead of its time.
Yeah.
So I was really impressed with, well, like you say, who knows if it was the director or cinematographer, but still, like the fact that he chose those scenes, even if it wasn't his original ones, makes me even more curious what the original cut looks like.
Hmm.
Like, if this is the stuff he rejected, what's the stuff that he did accept,
Hmm.
right? Yeah, I thought it was fantastic. And all right, so what are your thoughts? Speaking of cinematography and slash special effects,
Incredible.
yes,
No, so I will say the like extreme use of the close-up kind of makes it feel like uh, a more experimental film.
Mhm.
Like maybe if I would like, it's like the old it's like Blair Witch Project was like, oh, we're gonna do something found footage. Like he was like, we're gonna do only extreme close-ups the whole movie.
uh,
And I did kind of like, I want to say I would tire of the extreme close-up, but like it does fit the overall tone and atmosphere of the movie. It's like
mhm.
intense and extreme, and so you're always right up against these people or right above them, kind of like towering over her or under her too. That's kind of interesting. Like in the court scene, a lot of the shots are angled down at her, uh, except for the more dramatic close-ups are all looking up at her. I will
Yeah,
say, I don't know what this is called, but where you're shooting a scene from one side, uh, and then like you can keep changing camera angles between like on this side of the actors, but you can cross that line.
yeah,
I
the
don't know.
180 rule. Yeah,
I will say they break that rule a few times,
they do a
and
lot actually.
they do that in Metropolis too. Like I'm only comparing to Metropolis just because I watched it like a couple weeks ago, and it's the only other 1920s 30s film that I've seen recently. But like yeah, they cross the line a lot. And like I don't know, like did they just not know back then or not care or I don't know.
I I think it's, at least for this movie, it's more of, we need to look at this person's point of view and then this person's point of view. That makes sense. Like if you had them right next to each other or something like that. I don't know, but
Mhm.
yeah.
I think they did a beautiful job at framing shots
Mhm.
too. They're like obviously the movie has like a very iconic moment where she has the crown
Mhm.
like in the arrow or whatever. Like I've seen that before. So I hadn't even seen this movie, but I'd seen that before. And
Yeah.
it's like when it's on screen, I paused it and just looked. Like I just had to stop for a second and just like I don't know why, but it was interesting enough for my brain to be like, this is unique in the film so far. So I'm just gonna sit here and look at it for a bit and then continue watching the movie. But so like in that sense, and she's framed behind inside this thing behind her. I don't know what it is. It's like part of the wall. Then later, when she goes out to be tried in front of the executioner,
Mhm.
the guy is like talking down to her, telling her her rights, telling her like, if you sign this thing, like you'll live, but you'll be in perpetual prison if you don't, and don't deny the things you've said, you're going to be executed. He's like under this massive black triangle, like
Yeah.
half the screen is black, and then his head is like being framed by the podium and like this black line and the sky, and like I don't know. I thought that was cool. I was like, nice.
Yeah. No, definitely. You could kind of tell in the scenes when Joan of Arc was about to say something like profound or whatever, they make it look almost angelic, right? Like they point up at her, she looks, I guess, holy or whatever. But in that scene you were talking about, they're kind of pointing down, kind of like overlooking her, kind of like a demon, I guess. Right.
Mhm.
So kind of the opposition to them, which is incredible. Like very unique and genius. Like I said, they didn't do that much back then with staging and all that because they were so limited.
Right.
like cameras in
Oh,
general were just, you can only have it right here.
yeah. I thought the scene change from that to her hair hitting the floor and then watching her getting her haircut was just like this movie is sad. Like,
It's
but
very sad.
it just like it just felt so punchy. I don't know why. I just loved that the scene change was just immediate to like she's lost. She's
Mhm.
losing. She hasn't lost technically. Like if she's being honest to herself, she saw those things and she should believe that she's going where she wants to go. But she's ultimately lost. She's let down Fran. She's going to be killed, but she can't let down God, and
Right.
that'll that's why she becomes the heart of France. But like, uh, you're just like, I don't know. That makes sense.
No, definitely, yeah. Yeah, just all around beautifully shot film. All right. So we'll go on to your thoughts on the music.
There's no music. What are you talking about? Admittedly I watched. So I checked this one out from my school's library, and it was from the Criterion Collection, and they had two versions. They had one just totally silent, and they had another
Mm,
one that had like a choral music and orchestral music that had been created for the movie. Maybe I don't know. They performed it,
yeah, yeah.
but I don't know like when that came out. And in my brain, I was like, I want to see this like without that, so I just watched the silent version. So I would honestly give music a 0 because I didn't listen to it. I didn't watch it with music.
Uh, no,
But
that makes,
then I watched a pirated version on YouTube later that had the music, so it was good. It added to the drama. So
yeah. Well, that's the tricky thing with silent films, right? Because so many of them are in the public domain, they didn't renew the license or whatever, that people throw whatever music they want onto it.
mhm,
And I've run into that issue several times.
mhm,
Um, but the one with the choral one, I think, is the original score that's supposed to be with the movie.
okay.
Um, and that's the one on HBO Max from Criterion. And so for me, I really liked it. I gave it a 5 out of 5 because it really did add to the movie, makes it feel epic, kind of operatic, even.
Mhm.
Um, eh, Basically, it's like the Duel of the Fates music, but for the whole movie. Like that's how I look
Yeah.
at
Yeah,
it.
that's funny. That's
Yeah,
true.
yeah.
I will say it's a different experience watching it totally silent versus with the the choral music because when it was totally silent, I was alone with my thoughts in the movie.
Mm,
Like you only see some dot. Like they only tell you what the people said a few times.
right.
Normally, I will admit, at one point I realized I was trying to read lips of people speaking French, not English.
Oh yeah, I did that too. I did that too.
but, but when they said "we," I got that. So
Yeah,
I
yeah, yeah, yeah.
follow along. But no, because I was left alone with my thoughts, I felt like the movie felt more devastating because like
Mm,
all I had to go off of was her expressions, their expressions, the like very limited title cards that told me what was being said.
mhm.
And it just like I felt alone. I felt like her alone. Well, I was alone. I was just sitting on the couch late at night when I should be going to sleep because I got school. But the idea was like I felt isolated like her, and like it made it kind of I felt more involved with the movie just because like one of my senses was missing.
Mhm.
But then later watching it with the music kind of helped me follow along a little bit better because they're trying to go with the drama of the movies.
Yeah,
So I'll give it a 5.
flat 0. There's no music.
I'll give it a 3. I'll give it a 4. I'll give it a 3.
Yeah, usually when it comes to silent films, I usually give it a 3 just because I don't know if it's the original or not. But I'm pretty sure with this and with movies like Metropolis, that is the original music. But it's very, very rare. Like I
Like
saw,
all Minotaur.
you're right. Oh, the one. Gosh. don't even talk about that. That one's awful. But anyways, yeah. Like I saw a movie called The Sheik last year, and it had this weird 70s synth music to it. I was like, this is terrible. But
Oh, is that
that's just what it had.
my school has that. Should I check it out?
I didn't like it. I mean, if you want to try it, go for it. But I wasn't a fan of it.
Okay.
Like, I think I give it a 2 out of 5 overall.
Okay, never mind.
Yeah, check out that episode, by the way, guys. I reviewed it a while back, but yeah, it's always hit and miss with music. All right. So what's your overall score? So kind of your average overall on the points for this movie.
My overall Letterboxd score is going to be 4.5 out of 5. No, 5 out of 5, bro. 5 out of 5.
5 out of 5. Nice.
Doesn't need to add up.
Okay. Well, for me, because I did my homework, no, it's a 4.8 out of 5, which I'll be rounding to a 5 out of 5. So would you recommend this movie, Hunter?
Yeah, I would. Perhaps not to a younger audience, just because they'll probably be bored. Well, I don't know. One of my roommates had seen it like a couple years ago and he liked it. So I'd say like if you're in middle school or high school and have a general interest in movies, you should check this one out. If you're just a normal adult person, you should check this one out. You're watching a piece of history. We almost don't have it. Just like a bunch, like you said, like a lot of silent films. So we need to be watching them and see what things these people were doing on the cusp of new technological advancement.
Yeah, it's something like 90% of them are missing now.
That's crazy.
Yeah, like we have so little of those movies. It's crazy. All right. Well, I agree. I would also recommend this movie, but I would say kind of freshen up your history on the Joan of Arc storyline if you don't know anything about it, because you will be lost at least for the first 20 minutes or so.
Just read a brief. Go on Wikipedia, read the first paragraph. You're good.
Yep, right. It's pretty much all it is a short paragraph on there, I guess. At some point, I want to check out the 1948 version with Ingrid Bergman. I guess that one is kind of more of like a biography than this one.
Yeah.
So I'd be curious to see how in the 40s they did it differently versus this in the 20s.
Mm-hmm.
And I love Ingrid Bergman. She's great in Casablanca. So yeah, anything with her will be fantastic, I imagine.
I haven't seen Casablanca.
Oh, have you seen Notorious?
No.
Oh, Gaslight?
No.
Well,
I wrote a joke.
you have some homework.
Well, that's really quick. This has nothing to do with anything. I know you're trying to end the podcast, but I joined a stand-up comedy club and I wrote a joke this week. I'll just say the opening line. I'm trying to learn how to gaslight better. I think that's funny. But anyways.
That's a good start. I'm trying to gaslight better, but I'm not that good at it. Or I don't know, something like that.
Yeah, I'll follow up with like a gaslight comment. Anyways,
Okay, yeah. Nice. But anyways, yeah, I would say, like Hunter said, kind of read a little bit about it first, then you'll kind of get an understanding of it. Well, other than that, I really, really liked it. Like, I was surprised because the last silent film I watched was, oh, what was it? The Wedding March, I think is what it was called. Or Foolish Wives. That's what it was. Foolish Wives by Eric von Stroheim. I hated that movie. It was awful.
Yeah.
Check out that review too, guys. I hated that one. It was terrible. So I was a little hesitant because a lot of the silent films they recommend have been really hit and miss with me.
Mm-hmm.
From the 1001 movies to see before you die. That's where I get a lot of my movies. Yeah, they've been hit and miss. So I was a little hesitant with this one, but this one is amazing.
Yeah.
Totally exceeded my expectations. All right. Well, those are our thoughts on Passion of Joan of Arc from 1928. And before we finish, you want to, well, I guess you don't have a YouTube channel or anything, but anything Anything you want to sign off with before we go?
It's a good movie.
It's a good movie. Yep. Follow his letterbox, everyone. So I'll have links to his letterbox and whatnot in the description. So
Yeah.
make sure to follow him.
Sometimes I forget to log movies until like a week later. And I've been really busy with school, so I haven't written any reviews lately. So I'd probably be a pretty boring letterbox person to follow. But do it anyway.
Should do it
Sometimes it's
anyway. Yeah. All right. Well, on that note, thank you so much, Hunter, for coming on. I had a great time with you, and I'll try to have you on again this year. Maybe another silent film. Not sure yet, but you're definitely welcome to come back on.
Well, thanks for having me, Harrison. It was a good time.
Yeah. All right. Well, on that note, thank you all so much. This has been Really Old Movies. I'm your host, Harrison Scullin. This is my guest, Hunter. Take care.